Chapter 1. Unearthing Musical Worship. We are called to an everlasting preoccupation with God. A. W. Tozer. I sat, fidgeting in church as usual, 13 years old, singing the same old songs, again, 2 standing up and 2 sitting down, in pews, from a red hardbound book, stanzas 1, 2, and 4, never 3. I grew up in church. It's what I knew. It was honestly a fairly enjoyable part of my life, but I didn't understand that I didn't understand worship. Musical worship, that is. One of our church board members stood passively on the platform, keeping everyone on the same page, keeping everyone in time, keeping everyone in line. Conducting. I wasn't bothered by it, nor was I moved by it. It was just what we did each week. Singing. Why did we do it? I wondered passingly. A way to remember truth? A way to share inspiring works of art? A way to absorb the gospel? A way to assemble theology? A way to enjoy camaraderie and emphasize community? A way to carry on our traditions? Too much for me to worry about. Don't get me wrong, I get it now. The words of the hymns I grew up with were and are invigorating, grandiose, thought-provoking. For many, they are life-changing. But for me, at 13, they were just plain hard to relate to. Like snow showers in summer. The lyrics didn't fit my vocabulary, almost like Japanese, a language I didn't speak in the schoolyard or the backyard, when I still don't speak in normal conversation. You know, the these, the thous, and the here-tos, and the wherefore arts. And of course, the Yoda talk. A language from a galaxy far, far away, we did sing. Old English. I enjoyed music tremendously and loved God passionately, but the songs with their alien language created a sort of barrier for me. And I don't think I was the only one. No doubt. These were the mantras of a generation come and almost gone. A passionate generation, mind you, but one of a different era. Their anthems were absolutely birthed out of great struggle and earnest pursuit of God. A cry of devotion that spoke of rock-solid, fervent followers of Christ, determined to sing out and live out their theology while celebrating their steadfast love for God via the prevailing sounds of their time, as they should. Even so, I was going to need more if this was going to become more for me. I wrestled with their expressions. I wrestled with their melody stylings and lyrical phrasings, attempting to comprehend, yet feeling disconnected. The heart was there, but I had trouble embracing these works of art as my own. I appreciated them, truly, but relating to them was a different story. A thought skipped through my mind. Just as these godly hymn writers had poured out passionate praises from their day, we needed to be able to discover God for ourselves and then bring forth our own expressions, new and different, yet grounded in the same ancient truths and penetrating presence encountered by our parents and grandparents, desiring to set our hopes anew on God for our generation in the same way generations before us had done. Clearly, they didn't blindly embrace the songs and sounds of a generation before them, but they composed majestic refrains of their own, spawned from their own encounters with God, fresh, real, profound, personal. Truth is, if I was expected to connect with God relationally while singing these lyrics together with these time-worn melodies, yeah, I missed the memo, mostly because the language kept me from deciphering the message. But also for this reason, I never quite understood the ultimate purpose of worship, of singing in church, of regurgitating songs with which I struggled to resonate. Still, I never thought to ask. Heart awakened. I gave my heart to God when I was 4 years old. I might as well have been born in a pew. Mainstream evangelical church. My dad led me to the Lord one ordinary night by my bedside, knees bent, hands folded, heart awakened. I received Jesus as my Lord and Savior, and I've been growing to love him and serve him more and more ever since. Interestingly, I've been cultivating a love for his church more and more ever since as well. Yet, one of the things that strongly hindered me was my inability to make the critical connection between an increasing relationship with God and musical worship, singing, a truly personal, intimate relationship with God expressed through song. I missed it completely. You see, when I was growing up, we often utilized the word personal to describe our relationship with God. The very idea of Christianity dictated relationship over religion. And we clarified this regularly. But I don't think I understood what it meant back then, at least not as I do today. And I really don't think many folks around me did either. I grew up in an amazing family. I regularly read my Bible and prayed in solitude in my room, starting in middle school. I specifically sought wisdom, knowledge, and understanding as I read daily from Psalms and Proverbs and other books of the Bible. I truly wanted to understand God, to obey God. I often asked him for help when I had problems. I didn't dislike church gatherings, and I loved youth group. I wanted to follow Jesus. I enjoyed music and didn't dislike singing hymns. Even so, the thought simply never occurred to me that I could or should attempt to pursue a close friendship with God, or that this friendship could be amped up through singing for him, about him, to him. Intimacy with God, friendship with God, these were fairly foreign terms, fairly odd too. Plus, it seemed like maybe God was too big, too busy, or too far away for all this. From my vantage point, let me clarify, no one told me this, but few told me otherwise that I remember. Church mostly seemed like something we attended to keep us on the straight and narrow, to keep us from falling prey to the devil, which was good. Yet I never really considered that we might expect to walk and talk with God, like Adam and Eve or like Moses. And I certainly never imagined this could be spurred on as I lifted my heart to him in song, in a church service, or in my bedroom. Of course, like many, I assumed singing was something we only did at church or in concert halls. And I assumed real fellowship with God was something for pastors and leaders only. I never imagined God was equally, truly available to me. To me, singing was horizontal, not vertical. We had more of a song service than a worship service. We were being led by a song leader more than a worship leader. We sang theologically profound songs with great historical significance, eternal truths that depicted a glorious foundational kingdom vision for life. Yet this was a vision to be understood more than encountered. It was more about a service than it was about a person, more cerebral than spiritual. Not that I even understood those concepts at 13. I was oblivious, I guess, young, learning, simply receiving what others taught me, or receiving only what I was perceiving. I don't know. Maybe no one ever suggested anything different, or maybe I just wasn't listening. Maybe a bit of both. Regardless, singing seemed like an end to me, not a means. We sang God's truth together. No doubt the songs endeavored to shape my thinking, truly, and the potential was all there, if we let them, if we were fortunate, if we could break through the 1,000-foot thick cultural walls. But then it was lunchtime, and we went home. Nevertheless, there was something in me tugging, something that kept burning, suggesting there was more to God, something more to church, something more to worship, much, much more. Music in my blood. I loved music. I took piano lessons. I played drums. I sang and wrote songs. My parents were both musical. They met at Taylor University, where my mom majored in voice and my dad played in a tremendous traveling trombone trio. Oh, if only YouTube existed back then. My sister pursued a music performance degree in flute at Wheaton College, while I had the incredible privilege of enrolling in a special class at Lawrence North High School in Indianapolis, Indiana, called Music Careers. I ate, drank, and slept music. I was nearly voted best musician in my senior class, but for Benji, what's his name, a talented guitarist with long hair and leather pants. Hashtag so close. Hashtag not bitter. I was drumline captain in our very competitive Indiana High School marching band for 2 years. I was the animated keyboardist in my very first Christian rock band in 10th grade called 717, based on a Bible verse to be sure, but for the life of me, I can't remember which one. I was having a blast. Music ran through my veins, but I had no idea what worship was. Absolutely no idea. I found myself sitting for hours at our little upright piano with my Sony dual cassette recorder, enthusiastically picking out Genesis and Chicago tunes note by note. The white keys were all jaggedly chipped at the ends as a result of either my sister or me hammering them with wooden blocks as a toddler. We never did discover the culprit. Yet I remained undaunted in my musical pursuits. Play, pause, find it on the piano. Rewind, play, pause, find it on the piano. Rewind, play, pause, find it on the piano. Rewind over and over again. Hours of delight. Hours. I remember writing one of my first Christian songs straight out of Proverbs 3:25 and 26. It was about overcoming fear. You need not be afraid of sudden disaster or the destruction that comes upon the wicked, for the Lord is your security. He will keep your foot from being caught in a trap. Scripture songs, straight from the Bible. Why not? Straight from the source. Plus, it's the only place you can lift lyrics and not be accused of plagiarism, right? In those days, God was giving me an increasing heart for His Word and for my peers. I wanted nothing more than to connect my three loves: God, people, and music. I saw music as a fun yet potent way to share the message of Jesus with those who were misguided by a love for temporary worldly pleasures, those hurting from the pains of life, those broken by life's daunting circumstances, those offended by hurtful, harmful people. And it certainly was. But I couldn't tell you much about this thing called worship. Don't you know, at that time, my youth group sang songs like Pharaoh, Pharaoh, and Lean on Me for worship. We even had hand motions for the songs, in high school, no less. We didn't think anything of it. We didn't know any different. What we had was good. We just didn't know there was more. I'm actually quite thankful for my journey, yet I also recognize my undeniable ignorance toward what I've grown to know today as worship. Made for the stage. All through high school and college, I wrote, recorded, and performed songs. Christian songs, passionate songs, scriptural songs, good songs, God songs, but not worship songs. At least not worship songs in the way we currently define them. That is, not corporate in nature. Not songs we would sing together as a church body, but songs people would primarily listen to and enjoy as someone else sang them on stage, concert style. I remember attending a Michael W. Smith DC Talk concert in the spring of 1991 and thinking to myself, I was born for this. I was created to do music on a stage like that. I could feel it as I peered across the vast crowd to the tiny performers on the other side of the oval-shaped arena, like it was my destiny, at least a version of it. After graduating from Anderson University in 1992 with a music business degree and marrying my sweet Martha, we spent 8 months ministering with Youth for Christ in Singapore. Then we moved to Nashville in the spring of 1993 to follow my musical dreams. The dreams I believed with all my heart were from the Lord. Like many, though, I was truly ignorant of the process involved in beginning a music ministry. I believed a beautiful fantasy that I'd have a major record contract, a brand new album in stores, a chart-topping single, and a Prevost tour bus rolling down the road, all in 6 months' time. Yep, Can you say naive? I recorded 3 independent CDs, played whatever dates I could find, hired an artist manager, all the while playing showcases and trying to drum up support for my Christian hip-hop career. You heard that right. Hip-hop. If only this were a picture book. But you have your imagination. I raised some money, purchased a conversion van, bought a sound and lighting system, and set out on the road with my soundtracks and my dance moves, all in hopes of changing the world for Jesus. And you could be sure I did. But the world also changed me. I found myself losing hope after about 4 years of trying to make it, without a record deal in sight, playing shows for $50, or just for a meal and a couch to sleep on wasn't cutting it. Sure glad my resourceful wife, Martha, was back home working a real job as an administrator for an accounting firm to hold down the fort. I guess we'd call her a sugar mama, the wife of a starving musician who actually has a decent job and can pay the bills so her artist husband can continue to pursue the big dream. I loved students, I loved music, I loved ministry, and I loved writing songs that challenged and encouraged people. I wrote a rap called True Love Awaits, about waiting for sex, based on the 90s True Love Waits campaign. I penned a song called Eyes on Him, about hypocrisy in the televangelist world, complete with a hijacked audio sample from the top 40 hit song Everybody Dance Now. Before this was illegal, of course. I even had a song inspired by DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince's Parents Just Don't Understand, called Drinkin's Out of Hand. I was all about it. And it was all good. But I definitely didn't know much about musical corporate worship. Eyes toward heaven. All this began to change in 1997 when I signed on as the lead singer of Goatee Records' surfer rock band Zilch. Zilch was made up mostly of band members from the popular Christian mega band DC Talk. We toured when they weren't touring. Big shout out to Toby Mack, CEO of Goatee, as well as President Joey Elwood, for believing in us. We definitely weren't a worship band, and we weren't generally that successful either. But after a few months, we did recognize a growing trend in many popular Christian bands to add a couple worship songs to the end of their set. In response, we worked up a Radiohead-esque version of the classic chorus, Lord, I Lift Your Name on High, and started rocking it as our closing song in the set each night. It was our little nod to God, a way to jump on the Christian worship band bandwagon. An attempt to prove to youth pastors everywhere that we were focused on ministry and not just on our careers. But then something happened. People started responding, genuinely, deeply, all while we played that little unassuming worship song at the tail end of our set. A song that honestly struck me as painfully cheesy in the earlier years. It scared me. I mean, I was brought up in a good conservative church, the kind where if someone raised their hand, we assumed they had a question. But now people were raising their hands and running to the altar without invitation. And this little church boy was freaking out because that just wasn't the way we did things. They were kneeling and crying. Tears of repentance and joy ran down their faces. They sang with all their hearts. They lifted up holy hands. They wouldn't be silenced. We had unknowingly struck a nerve. It was as if this new worship had suddenly burst a dam that had been frantically holding back people's passion for Jesus. For years. It was no joke. We were seeing something we had never seen before. Many people seemed to be turning their eyes toward heaven, turning their eyes toward Jesus, turning their eyes toward eternal things. And away from us, huh? Away from us? Wait, that's not good, is it? We're trying to build a brand here, trying to establish a name for ourselves, trying to get noticed. This can't be right. Oh, never mind. Scratch that. Who cares? It was indisputable. It was overwhelming. It was beautiful. It was what we always wanted. In light of all this new God awareness, nobody really seemed to care about brand awareness. We knew one thing. The more we sang that song, the more we wanted to sing that song. Because the more we sang that song together in that moment, the more we seemed to enjoy God. All of us, for real. Somehow, of course, we knew it wasn't the song itself. It was so much more than that. It was God moving in the expression of that song as we lifted our hungry praise to Him in a childlike freedom that silenced the naysayers. No doubt, God was filling those moments like crazy, highlighting them so we could experience something we'd all been longing to experience, but that had always so often eluded us in the past. True ministry, true connection, true encounter, true worship. As we lifted Him up, as we cried out to God, He was seriously, undeniably drawing people closer to Himself by the boatloads. You could feel it. You could taste it. We saw it happening with our own eyes. The atmosphere was rich with God, not of religion or Christian cliches, not of man-made hype or emotion, not of skilled entertainers having their way with the gullible crowd. No, we were experiencing something special, undeniable. We were beginning to lose ourselves, and yet we were gaining Him like never before.